fuck's sake, Nate. Right, so this is the point where we will do the intro because I've just made a complete blunder of myself by trying to record and telling everyone, by the way, this is the second attempt we are trying to record this, by the way. And then into the intro, which I'll still figure something out. I'm sure a friend of mine or someone will come up with some animation for the intro. Welcome to my tavern. How can I help? To which I would then go, hello everybody! Welcome to the third episode of A Day in the Tavern. Welcome, where today I am joined by a really good friend of mine, fellow D&D player, and to put him to shame a little bit, oldest member of the Crit Takers, Neil.
Fuck you! Yeah, hi. Thanks for that.
So again, and I'll leave this building for the third time. Neil, how are you? Because that's the thing you do in podcasts with things like this. Even though you already asked them now twice now from me to you, how you are today.
I'm good. Yeah. What did I say the first two times?
Something about Final Fantasy 14 and building a house. I think that's
I finally acquired a house in Final Fantasy 14 yesterday. So basically, I've spent the last day basically gathering stuff in game and crafting stuff up to try and make the house look really cool. And kind of planning to get a housewarming party together because that's social life now. It's not going to the pub or venues. It's organising meetups with friends in virtual spaces. That's what we do now.
That's the way forward. Zoom, Discord, which obviously we're talking through. Skype have made somehow a glorious, miraculous return from the death. Although MSN is still buried beneath whatever rubble. It collapsed on top of it somehow.
Good.
So, obviously, this is a geek show. We are both massive, massive geeks. And things like that. So let's dive straight into the stuff that you geek out about. What's like the biggest things that you'd say you go full geek on? Like the second you see new news of it, it's like you have to find out right away. You can't wait, kind of thing.
Ooh, full on geek as soon as I hear any new news about it. I don't know about that because I'm really bad at keeping up with news feeds. But put it like this: if I'm down at MCM London Comic Con and I'm going past the table and I see a new game system that I haven't seen before for like tabletop role playing, I'm going to have a look and I'm probably going to buy it because even if I don't ever use the system, I'm a rules system slut.
Yeah.
And I just love reading them. I love reading, see how people have found ways to engineer worlds and engineer mechanisms and stuff, and also it's normally something to do with something I already really love. So over on the shelf I have unplayed. I've got the Witcher role-playing game system. I've got the Lone Wolf role-playing game system. For anyone that's knows Joe Deva's Lone Wolf choose your own adventure books from way back in the day, that had a massive impact on me as a kid. So there's actually a tabletop role-playing game system for them, and I just love reading them. That's kind of what really grabs me. It's not going to end now until
there's like a role-play system for every kind of fandom genre thing out there. I saw like one that was based on, and this appeals to me quite a bit, like a Pokemon one. And I was like, well, okay, there I'm going to relive me being 6 years old and picking up Pokemon Blue for the very first time.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, there's a Firefly role-playing game system around somewhere if you can find a copy of it.
Yeah, that the issue is finding a copy of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. There's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles role-playing game as well, which I've got ancient paperback copy of. It's
Wow.
brilliant. Whatever you want
So
to do, man.
so like role playing game. What got you into like role playing games and like Dungeons and Dragons? And like, what was the first edition of D&D you played? As you're like one of the only two players who have been playing D&D longer than me. Um,
Yeah. Ahead of this interview, as I was actually thinking about that, and I can't quite place which of two incidents came first. I know it was at secondary school, so I was like between the ages of like 11 and 15 at the start of secondary school. I know this is probably about 11 years old. Let's not say how long ago that was.
yeah, no. All we'll tell the audience is that you are the oldest member, but we will not let anyone know how much older. So as far as everyone knows, you could be just like 1 year older than Spink.
Yeah. And it was either my mate Billy Chapman who brought in this old Star Wars system by West End Games, which used D6s for all these stats and stuff, and
Yeah.
introduced me to it through that, or it was Tim Musgrove who introduced me to D&D with the red box set when I went round to his house once.
Oh wow, that's wow.
So yeah,
What was that? Is that
I'm
first or second? Oh, that's going like first, isn't
red,
it?
no, red box set was D&D Basic,
Oh
which came out
fuck
I think
yeah.
after first edition to make it easier to play and encourage people to play it. So the red box set was the first slice of D&D that I got,
So
and after that, I then went to AD&D first edition eventually with some sixth form friends of mine. Yeah, so
nice. So
old
I was
school.
talking to Spink. So when Spink was on here last week, and I say he's on here, he's literally sat like on the other side of the room.
Yeah,
He just headphones on in his own world as well. So he said he started in 3.5,
yeah.
and I think it's kind of interesting to kind of look. And I've like seen videos, and there are videos out there that kind of talk about like the very first like D&D first edition of D&D, and like the massive difference between what that is and how fifth edition is now, especially like all the expansions and new races and classes. So what's like the main thing that you've been excited about that's changed in D&D over the years? Or has anything been made easier? Have you found anything more difficult, or is there some like sense of nostalgia in the original first edition of D&D?
Um, I do definitely have a sense of nostalgia about the first edition of D&D. Yeah, definitely, because it was actually the last edition of D&D that I took part in as a player on a regular basis. A really good friend of mine, Phil, still a really good friend of mine, was running a campaign based in the Dragonlance world.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I was playing a Knight of Solamnia called Tuladas Slayer, who's and I've got very very fond memories of that. In terms of the mechanics of that system, it was kludgy. The first edition was very kludgy. Second edition smoothed that out a bit, and I've got strong nostalgic memories of that as well because that's the system that I ran a campaign for, which lasted 15 years
Well,
with a bunch
yeah,
of my best friends.
I have heard like about
Yeah,
campaigns, like old school campaigns that would just like I mean the longest running campaigns I've seen has been about 5 6 years. 50
wow.
running something for
I
15
mean,
years. Just
it was off and on. It was
yeah.
off and on. Admittedly, there were breaks because life happens and people move houses and blah blah blah. But overall, it lasted 15 years. And I think that kind of at the end of that is why I burnt out on being a DM. Like, I could write some stuff and maybe do a one shot, and I want to. I've got some ideas, but there's a part of me that's like, nah, man, stay on this
Yeah.
side of the table. You
Yeah,
deserve it.
I definitely. This is like something for the audiences. I've definitely invited you to like DM a one shot or two, and I think you've got like
Yeah,
something planned. I think eventually for when we can actually meet up again and after the COVID times and
yeah.
actually do
The
something.
one
Which
the one shot that I most want to run would only really work best all in the room together, and preferably in a room where I've got control of the environment.
oh, that can easily be arranged. That's the thing. You know like a lot of the stuff in
Yeah,
in my house and like how it works, especially with all the new lights I've put in and everything.
yeah. The lights would be useful. Atmospheric sound would be useful. Yeah, I just got
Yeah.
to sit down and actually
I,
write it. It's all going around in my head what to do and what the story and the plot is.
I
But
have a
yeah.
bad sense of Tomb of Horrors kind of thing running through my head now.
Oh
So
no
I
no no
was
no 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 no. No, it's going to be much more story oriented, and basically, it's not going to be traps and monsters that will kill the party. If anything's going to kill the party, it'll be the party killing the party. through
Oh,
fucking
brilliant.
up. So yeah,
Oh, that'd be
that's
absolutely brilliant. And that just
yeah.
don't get too attached.
Oh no 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 no! Don't do that. Yeah. But yeah, I've played 3.5 as well. I ran a brief campaign in 3.5 and skipped 4, and then because that was around about when a massive break happened in my D&D playing for various reasons. And then John invited me onto that one shot in what was it, October 2019?
Around that time, fucking
Old time period, 2019.
yeah,
And yeah, you guys
yep.
liked
And
the way I played and just sort of went,
I
hey,
think it's just your playing of Spring and this very lovable yet conniving, thieving Tabaxi rogue. I'm sorry. What did you?
diving.
I'm sorry. What you were trying to steal stuff in the second second session of this mini side quest campaign we're doing at the minute to bring you all back to your characters.
That shopkeeper was trying to vastly overcharge us. He was a dick, and therefore, what do you do? For a start, we couldn't afford the supplies we need. It's like, fuck that guy, we're taking it.
Oh God, yes, I remember that so much. I just remember I looked at you, right? Do it, darkness. And we just grabbed everything
Yeah.
and ran. And our friend Ant was there with us, and he knew the spell, so he just took
And
his helm off, put over the dark where the darkness was, and it just shone darkness on the shopkeeper. So the shopkeeper was still in the dark
yeah,
and didn't know what was going on, and we were gone.
yeah. Uh, that was a good little mini campaign. That was as far as we got with it. It was a good campaign. We
Yeah,
must have finished that off.
I have to say, like
So
most
yeah,
people I played with, like on a from the player side, like the economics just doesn't work a lot of the time in D&D because it's you have to base it off nothing. I know I'm shit.
yeah,
I'm shit most of the time. I just like this is why I only work in like gold pieces because it's just a little.
yeah,
It's one system that's easier to track than oh yeah you have gold, copper, silver, electrum,
yeah,
platinum. And
yeah.
just like oh yeah too much, way too much, way too much.
Yep.
Easier just to okay there's a gold piece for everything and yeah something like that. I'm
Yeah.
sure maybe
And
if we get
otherwise,
on.
you're gonna make change and
I'm sure maybe
keep track of the
if we ever get
coppers,
onto like a
whatever.
second campaign on Elridge, I'll eventually have a little bit more knowledge. Like, okay, then I can put gold and silver into it,
Yeah,
because at least that's easier. Three things is
yeah.
easier to kind of juggle than five. And I'm a person who can actually physically juggle, and I can't juggle five things, but I can juggle three quite easily.
I can't juggle. I can't. No juggling over here. Can't do it.
so,
Tried, failed.
so anyone who's like watched our campaign so far, what's been like your favorite thing about creating someone like Spring and filling this character out? Because the backstory you've done him. I mean, obviously not everyone who watching this will know the backstory, but I know it quite well. So, what's been like your favorite thing about like with Spring and making this off, not off color, but I'm not sure how to kind of put lovable. Yeah, just he's a lovable swashbuckler. That's all he is. He's
Yeah, yeah. Well, Spring's had an interesting journey as a character. Because I created him before joining Crit Takers. As like a secondary character from a little cast of characters I have, and I'd started like writing some self fanfic about them, as it were. Sort of to do with the furry fandom. And the reason was that basically my first character that I created, I'd sort of moved on from.
yeah,
Created him during a very very dark time in my life, and everything that I put into that character was very much aspirational. And I think I've got a lot of it back, so I kind of drew a bit more distance from that character, and I created Spring, who was originally called Nitus Rohan, with Nitro being his nickname that everyone would
yeah,
use around him. And through writing about him, I explored a lot of different aspects of myself, which was very interesting to do, including questions about sexual identity, morality, and various other bits and pieces. So he went from being this character in a modern setting to joining you guys and playing a Tabaxi and just using a generic Tabaxi picture. And I thought, no, wait a freaking minute. I've got this character that I've already got art of, who's got cool lynxy ears, who's got a little lynx nub tail. It's a very cool looking character, and he probably would actually, fit this. So he went from being this mod A character to coming into the like D&D genre. And when I started playing him, instead of just writing about him, when I actually started playing him, he just even in that first campaign run by Tilly, he just seemed to just come off the page, walk into me, and go, "Hello, I'm here. This is how I am. This is how what's going to happen with me around. I'm taking over." And a lot of that was it was brilliant. He just sort of sprang to life, literally. It's been
Brilliant
fascinating to
metaphor
watch him
for
change and grow.
yeah, his name. How much of yourself would you think you've poured into Spring, or do you think Spring's like not necessarily like another part of you or a person you create, but how much of you, like your personality wise, would you say is in Spring?
Um, that's kind of a two-way street, I think, honestly.
Yeah, especially with like cause you kind of partly answered that question there, but I think it's like a really, but still like I still think it's kind of good
Yeah,
because you're. It's not only something that the people who are watching and the actual fans we have, which still shock me that people actually watch our videos. But thank you, everybody. Not dissing
thank
you on
you,
that one. I
thank you
just
very much.
love it so
Yeah,
much. But
yeah,
but it's also again, it's also kind of for yourself because you're like now looking at this character and you're realizing like, well, wait a minute, there's more of me in this character. There's more about yourself. You're learning, like as you just said.
yeah. The first character that I created way back was Kayakami, and he was very much about honor, strength, a warmth of personality, being reliable, and having a strong physicality to him. All things I, at that time in my life, when I created him, were very much aspirational. Still, I'd lost about myself.
Yeah.
So with Spring, um, he very much more picks up on the side of me that comes out when I'm on stage playing music, which is the performer,
Yeah.
the big, I'm here, come look at me. The whole sort of that side of things where it's just like, come on, look over here. I'm fucking fantastic. You know you want to watch this and you know you're going to enjoy it. But at the same time, when I get off stage, I'm not really like that much of the time. I like entertaining people. I like making people laugh. I like looking after people. I think a lot of that comes out in Spring as well. And also, Spring's reminded me that it's not just on stage that I like doing those things. It's not just on stage that I like being sort of "Woo-hoo!" Off stage as well. That and that's been a bit of a reminder for me as well to actually just again take life less seriously and reach out and touch people in a way that cracking jokes, being a sassy little bitch, and being a complete idiotic derp can make people laugh and break themselves out of down moments.
I'm going back to my tongue twisting moment again. Yeah, I've definitely kind of seen that side. Like, a few times that we've actually gone out on night outs, like together, like as a group, a few times. It's been amazing, and just kind of seeing this like this side of you. Like I'm used to like that side, but I'm used to that side seeing you playing this Tabaxi character who's always trying to find the bright side in everything, even like facing some of the battles you guys done in game. You still Spring still comes out the other side, just like, oh well, we survived that one, didn't we? Kind
Yeah,
of thing. And then seeing that on a night out where we're all just like drinking, it's just like, okay, now I can see where you kind of drawn that line of that character from. And then
yeah,
obviously speaking about on stage, because obviously probably not everyone who's probably watching this will know that we've actually been roped in, and I'm saying that very lightly, loosely, and lovingly into playing
very
into a folk metal.
willingly, and happily
Willingly,
roped in. Yeah,
happily roped in to playing in a folk metal band with Tilly now, which
cool. Valhalla.
yeah, Valhall, yeah, which I mean, sorry for me, I get to behind the drum kit again, which I haven't done properly for a band in ages. And I
Yeah, I
think it's
get
just
to
going to
get
be
behind a guitar again, which I haven't done for like 20 years on stage. I think 15, 20, something like that.
I think it's just
Yeah,
gonna be interesting. And I'm just now gonna now you told me that I'm gonna be behind that drum kit playing and watching you so closely just to see any moment of Spring just fling out. I know we have to.
yeah.
I know we're doing this folk metal band. We're gonna be like wearing like costumes and kind of Viking esque style. But if you just one day come out with the hat and the tail, I'm just like, yeah, that's it.
I would, but I think Tilly would kill me.
He'd have to get through me first, and I have
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have a
fair,
lot of
fair.
broken drumsticks.
Yeah, fair. Yeah,
So nice little chunk about D&D. So what's like you were talking about Final Fantasy earlier. So have you been like massively into all the games, or has it only been like? Because I mean, the only one I'm only ever been into 7 myself, only because like there's a
Yeah.
big deep story behind it. They did the film as well,
Yep.
which was absolutely brilliant. Um,
Yep.
so it's like your take with Final Fantasy and the wider kind of weird series of games that don't have any connection to the one
Yeah.
previous.
Final Fantasy VII is actually the game that got me back into gaming when it first came out. Because very generously, my wife's family, well, what they did, they duped me beautifully. One of the previous times I went round to visit them, they were like, "Oh, you like, got me playing Final Fantasy. I've been enjoying it," and they gave me a memory card for their PlayStation because you had to chunk these things into the PlayStation back then.
Oh yeah.
They're like, "There you go, save your game on that, and then when you come around, you can pick up your own game again." I was like, "Yeah, brilliant." I went around there at Christmas, and they bought me a freaking PlayStation and Final Fantasy VII for Christmas. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, and that game got me back into like video gaming again. So again, something I'm massively nostalgic about. I haven't actually played many of the other Final Fantasies. I played Final Fantasy VIII, I think it was with Squall and that lot, and that kind of teenage angst angle on Final Fantasy drove me nuts. And then there was the one, I think it was Final Fantasy 12, where they had the sort of basketball-like game that they played in that big ball of water. I think that was
Oh
12.
yeah. I remember seeing
Yeah,
random videos of that, and that just
yeah.
that gave me headaches
Played,
just watching that.
yeah, played that as well. But there's some really grindy element to it I didn't enjoy. So I kind of left Final Fantasy alone for a while, and then 2020 happened. I
Yeah.
thought, screw it, let's give it an MMO a go. And Final Fantasy VII Remake had come out, had rekindled me interest in the whole franchise, and I was just like, let's give 14 to go because I had some friends online that had been playing it before. Got into it and was just like sold, absolutely sold on the whole thing. And I've been playing it since about May last year. And I still haven't finished the main story quest because I like procrastinating by crafting and gathering.
Well,
So
MMOs like that, especially MMOs and like a lot of more RPG games, a lot of people now kind of figure out it's like, well, it's easier if I do the storyline for like one chapter, maybe 2 chapters, then go off and do all the side quests, and then you can
yeah.
breeze through the rest of the main storyline, like just
And
knocking
also,
everything out of the way.
yeah, and also not only that, if you just stick to the main story quest constantly and do nothing else, you could burn yourself out.
Yeah.
You know, the more variety of stuff you do in a game like that, the less likely you are to burn out because you'll have more different things to do. Like people that just do the top end raids all the time or trials, they're going to burn out, and they do, and they end up dropping out of the game for weeks at a time or months because they're just like, I'm done. And they come back when new content comes out or to see friends, and it's all about balance.
You say that it's exactly kind of what I do with World of Warcraft myself as well. I love the games. I've been
Eh,
playing the game for years now. I've got all the books around it upstairs, and I've read them like several times. Absolutely love it. But
right.
it's like every time like the next patch or the next expansion comes out, I'm on it for about a month. Complete everything I can do with my main character because it's a game that you can have like several different alts on as well and run the game with
Yep.
those as well. But it's like, no, this is the character I play because every time I go to an alt, it's like the way I can describe to you is like you're playing like a guitar. Go to a different guitar, different company, different make, different model, different style, and you're like, okay, that's all right. You take a bit of time getting used to that. Then you go back to your guitar,
Yep.
and it feels real
Yep.
completely different. And that's what it's like with I find with WoW. And like, okay, I'll
Yeah.
play my main. Okay, I'll go play one of my alts. So my main's like a shaman. I'll go, okay, I'll go play a paladin for a few days. I'm like, okay, I got used to that. Go back
Yeah.
to my shaman. Like, how do I play shaman again? kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's like the issue.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that I love about Final Fantasy. You can do all the jobs and all the classes on one character. So I'm main ninja, and it's a ridiculously fun job. There are so many because I play with my PlayStation controller on PC because console gaming for years I can't do it on keyboard and mouse.
Yeah,
Controlling movement and camera with keyboard and mouse just feels so weird. Um,
yeah, I know exactly
but
what you mean.
yeah, but with Ninja, it's perfect for a controller play because there's so many button combinations you've got to do to get various combos out and stuff, and it's a really fun job. But other than that, I really like playing Paladin, which is probably just the same as in World of Warcraft. It's just like damage mitigation constantly. Generate all the aggro, stand in the middle of all the shit, and just mitigate, take it so other people can do the damage.
And that's the thing. I mean, the one thing I kind of liked World of Warcraft, and I think why it translated into D&D as well as I did, was like you get your class, and then each class has different specifications, aka subclasses.
Yep.
The only difference is in like, wow, you can swap which specification you are, which
Right.
I quite like sometimes. Like certain playing characters, and like so Paladin has like 3 different ones, and you can either be a DPS, a tank, or a healer. With it, and each specification you get different. Just like in like subclass spellcasting subclasses, you get different spells with your subclass. It's basically like that. So obviously, I don't tank or heal, and wow, I can't. It's too much responsibility. It's way too much.
Yeah.
I there's a druid I play in it, and he's my only tank. Only because I can stay in bear form all the time, not have to worry about spells, and just literally do 3 things: get aggro, swipe, and area swipe, and that's it. And as long as the healer keeps healing me up, I'm fine. That's it. That's
Go. Finish yourself.
That's like the rules with MMORPGs. Is like the tank protects the healer and causes the aggro. The healer heals the tank and makes sure nobody dies. So the DPS don't stand in the fire and attack.
Those tasty AoEs. I love them.
Oh, you gotta be careful with the
Yeah,
enemies.
no. Yeah. I mean, I started off as Paladin. That was my starting job in the game, so tanking. But it happens with all MMOs. I had a really bad experience in a dungeon. I was just still trying to get to grips with the game, with some of the slightly more advanced mechanics in the dungeons. This other person in the group just absolutely flamed me for my tanking. And I was like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to go back to being a ninja. I'm going to go and pick up this other class that I've heard about, which is a rogue. And I always like playing rogues in games.
Yeah.
And the rogue progressed into ninja, and I was just like, whoa! Here we go!
Super sneak.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's the one thing that always gets me about the online community. It doesn't matter like what game it is. You always find the pockets of online community. There's like the pockets of people who are like very supportive, and they'd be like, "Yeah, okay, well you'll get better. Here's like some tips," but you always, without fail, will run into someone who's just like, "You're shit. Why do you bother playing? You can't do this."
Uninstall the game.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
And you know that person is probably stupidly shit themselves as well.
Yeah.
I've had that like several times. It's like, oh, your DPS is low. And I was like, wait a minute, let me look up. And it's like the guy who had to go at me about it's like DPS as well. Mine was like twice as high as his. And he's like, why are you talking shit to me when yours is worse than mine? It's like, you don't get...
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah.
I'm
going to go back to tanking at some point. I am going to go back to tanking at some point because I like the idea of the role because it's protecting other people. But on the flip side, within the community, I've met some really amazing people, some people that I really like hanging out with in game. And when I was struggling at one point during the game with money, I can't remember who the hell they were, and I really wish I could. They examined my character because they thought I looked a bit odd for the area we were in. Like my gear was too basic for being in the area, and they basically messaged me in game going, "You're right, your gear's way under level. Are you struggling?" I was like, "Yeah, having a hard time, not doing too well. I wasted some money earlier in the game and now regretting it." And they just sent me like 200,000 gil, which is the in-game currency. We're like, "Go sort yourself out, mate. Have a good game." And they literally just got on their mount and flew away, having dumped 200,000 gil. And we're like, "Come back!" So I went off to the vendor in game. Yeah, I went off to the vendor in game, bought all my new gear. I was like, "I've got this all really cool new gear." I had like about 28,000 gil left over at the end of it as well. And I was like, "Where's my savior gone? Who were they?" You know?
Random NPC fairy, just like, here you go.
Yeah. So I've taken that on board. So rather than being someone that flames people for struggling or not doing too well, you either support them, or in my case, because I've gone so heavily into the crafting and gathering in the game, if I got a friend around who's struggling with their gear, I'll be like, right, what do you need? I'll get it. I'll sort it out for you. I'll gather the stuff up and I'll craft it.
Yeah.
You know, you just pay it forward. Do nice shit for people and makes everything much nicer. General rule for life.
General rule for life, just one I wish more people would follow than the current
Yeah.
whatever situation.
It's
but we're not
yeah,
going to
and
get
it's
into
not
politics
difficult
on this
either.
show.
Yeah.
You can't get too deep into politics or religion on this show. Otherwise, then my opinionated side will come out and be like, you know what? Yeah, that
Your
everyone.
opinion. You're opinionated, really? Are you sure about that?
I'm not all the time, but I have my moments, and this is why I don't talk.
Oh shit.
It's the rule. It's the same rule why you don't talk politics or religion on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're going to offend someone.
I
You know,
don't give a
even if you're saying that.
I don't give a shit about offending people. If someone's going to get offended, fine. That's their problem, not mine. I've
Yeah,
always
true.
pride myself on not
Yeah.
being easily offended because it's just like, well, why should something like that offend me? It's the people who get offended on behalf of other people who aren't
Oh.
offended that's where I kind of draw the line. Is like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not worth my time anymore. If you're going to get offended about something I say that doesn't affect, nope, done. Sorry.
Yeah. Out. Sorry.
Walk away, wash my hands, drink, and carry on.
Yep.
So, are there any other like areas of geek or fandoms that you have like an absolute must be a part of your life kind of thing?
Yeah. Actually, I guess to take it out of the packaging on this, it's probably going to be this little dude. Mimato Usagi.
Ooh, wow.
Usagi Yojimbo by Stan Sakai. That's probably the thing that I get most excited about sometimes, actually. When new special stuff comes out for Usagi Yojimbo. It's basically it's a really long-running comic. Been written and created and drawn by the same guy since the start. His owner-creator, Stan Sakai. And it's basically about an alternative 16th century Japan where pretty much everybody is actually an anthropomorphic animal. Main character's a samurai rabbit, and there's also brilliant.
That's just already brilliant. That's like
yeah. There's a samurai rhino as well. There's ninja cats. There's ninja bats. There's all sorts. It's brilliant, and he always brings in threads of Japanese culture and history, which he explains during very often in back notes. So yeah, that's something I get really excited about because they've got a whole art book of it as well, and there's like collected editions, new editions and stuff. It's just like, how much money could I spend on this? A lot. I've got 2 tattoos of characters from the comics as well. So there's all sorts of ways I can spend money on Miyamoto Usagi if I want to. But yeah, absolutely love him. Absolutely love it. So that is probably one of the other biggest areas of geekdom I have.
How did you get into that then? How did you discover it?
That goes back to secondary school again. Good friend of mine at the time who now lives in Australia, John Meanley, was always massively into comics. He was a really good comic artist himself. He had a really good comic-y style to what he drew. But he brought some of the early Usagis in to school and was reading them at break. I was looking over his shoulder. I was like, what the hell is this? So he explained it to me. And I was kind of aware of it into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the time as well, and their comics. And it just dovetailed together. At the time, I never really got deeply into it. And then I just let it drop away. And then I think about 7 or 8 years ago, when I was trying to find new things to spark me up in life, because I was in a shit place and I needed to get something new to get my engine going again. Usagi just popped into my head. Literally 30 years, almost. What would that be? Yeah, best part of 30 years later, he just popped into my head. I just bought a couple of the trade paperbacks, read them. I was like, this is fantastic. And just I've got a whole shelf full of the trade paperbacks now. Unfortunately, I'm a couple behind. I need to catch up. But yeah, it's another good thing that came out of a bad period of time, and I think that very often that could be the case.
I
that
think
you
that's
go
one of
through
the
some real shit.
great things about like geeks fandoms, things like that. It does definitely bring you back from some dark
Yeah,
points, and especially nowadays when it's. I mean, this is part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is because it's like things like geeks fandoms and the nerd side of life is becoming such a big culture relevant
yeah,
thing nowadays that there needs to be more places for people to be able to talk about it openly, or people can go to and catch up or discover kind of new things. Because I'm a
yeah,
slight bit of a comic book nerd myself, but I do kind of follow the original tropes of Marvel and DC, and then occasionally into
yeah,
Dark Horse because Hellboy is an awesome actual
yeah,
fucking thing that people forget was started as a comic.
yeah.
Just
Well, Dark Horse is where Usagi was rostered for a long time, but he recently moved. I think also that I was going to try and put a quote in here, but I can't remember what it is for the life of me. But you know, there's that quote about there comes a time to put aside childish things.
yeah,
It's only ever the first part of that quote that's quoted. And I deeply encourage people to go and look up the rest of that quote because the quote is not about abandoning being a child and childish things. The quote is about not doing that, very specifically, not doing that. And as someone who, for 10 or so years of his life, took himself way too seriously, which did massive damage to my mental health,
doesn't it always?
don't, yeah, absolutely. It's one of the worst things you can do. Don't set aside childish things. If there's things in your life that still give you vitality and joy, even if they're from like when you were 5, 6, 8, 12, whatever years old, keep hold of them. See if you can keep them fresh. If they're things that are still going and still developing, follow them still. Still be involved because they're going to keep you fresh and renewed
Yeah,
inside.
I think you're right, especially nowadays. I mean, as much as I just said, like geek and fandoms are coming to bigger thing. There's still a lot of people out there who, like you said, like for a while, they will take themselves too seriously. They'll take everything in
Yeah.
life seriously. You can't, and it's not that they don't have fun or anything like that, but
Yep.
it's just they don't know how to relax and have fun, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And they kind of forget that, well, just because you liked it as a child, what's actually stopping you liking it when you're 20, 25, 30, 40 upwards,
Yep. Yep.
however old. I mean, I've done that recently. I mean, I've fucking turned 30 last year, and I'm like still digging back into. I know I feel old and young at the same time with that
Yeah.
one little statement. It's pissed me off so much, but I've gone like back to like some of the things I like absolutely loved and was obsessed about as a kid, and I looked at it and it's like, why did I stop giving this up? And then I found like, oh, there's actually a darker side and a lot more darker stuff and more adult things. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, maybe I should do a podcast talking about that kind of stuff as well because we're all
Yeah.
adults here, aren't we?
Yeah.
Basically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
I did have something I was going to say on the back end of that, but I've completely forgotten what it was now.
this
Yeah.
is me when I go on a
Yeah.
tangent rant.
I know what it was. I know what it was. Philosophy of life for me at the moment is, you do your job if you're fortunate enough to have one. You pay your bills if you're fortunate enough to have bills to pay. You look after your house if you're fortunate enough to have a house. You appreciate all those things. And once you're done doing the goddamn adult, grown up things that you have to do whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a grown up adult the rest of the time. You don't have to take everything seriously. You don't have to be constantly productive. And you don't have to monetize everything you do in your life. And those are two great ills that have also come out in more recent times. And this idea that you have to be
Yeah.
constantly productive.
And like, if you're not being productive, if you're working towards something, you have to constantly be working towards it. Otherwise, you never. And it's like, well,
Yep.
that's not true. I've got like four
Yeah.
or five things I'm working towards, and it's like, well, if I do nothing but do that, I wouldn't actually have time for my actual job that I have. Although as much as I'm not
Yep.
furloughed because of the wonderful situation we're in, which actually gives me free time to do the stuff
Yeah.
I want to do instead, which is
I-
a very weird circumstance that I feel lucky to have literally been dropped into at the minute. Like, I complain about it at some point, but there's
Yeah.
only so much you can complain living in England with. Everyone else is allowed to complain as well. I can't do it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also like people are like, oh, you're into creative writing, are you? Well, how are you going to make money out of that? How's it going to work for you in a grown up context? You like drawing, do you? Okay, so how are you going to
hate those
monetize that?
questions so
Just
much.
do it for the fun of it. Just do it
Yeah.
for the fun of it. You know? If
Yeah, exactly. Doing what we're doing the music that we do. I'm not doing it because I want to be a famous musician playing the O2 Arena 5 years down the line. No, I'm doing music because I enjoy playing music. Us doing the
Yep.
D&D thing is like we do it because we enjoy this game and we want to share the game with everyone, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And if 2020 has taught me anything, it was the sudden cessation of being able to play D&D in the same room as my friends, going down rehearsal studios and hanging out with mates and creating music, playing gigs, all of these creative and social aspects and activities that I used to do, gone away for a whole year almost now.
Mm-hmm.
And it really rammed home to me that creative pursuits are absolutely vital for me to be happy. To actually feel like I'm being
Yeah,
actualized as a person. Without them, I very rapidly get miserable.
yeah. I've definitely felt the brunt of that myself as well. Just
Mm.
I don't think it's just so much about being creative, but it's just that was definitely a side of it. But it was like seeing people. I
Yeah,
like to famously quote that I just hate so many people because people are a nuisance. They're everywhere and they shouldn't be tolerated. But at the same time, I know I'm a bit of a social butterfly, and I was like, if I
yeah.
need to be around people every so often, let's pull away from this little borderline depressing topic.
No, no, no. We're bringing things on a positive bent
Yeah,
of it,
yeah,
though. We're saying what we miss and what we do, and like, yeah. But
So
yeah,
I want to take it back to D&D quickly because this is being posted on a Dungeons and Dragons YouTube channel and things like this. And I did ask Spink this last week as well. What would you say your favorite race and class, not necessarily comboed together, but what would you say your favorite race and classes slash subclasses would be?
the unlike second edition and 3.5, where I had a nearly encyclopedic knowledge of the rules, I don't have that with 5e yet. I don't know if that's been deliberate on my part or just laziness on my part, but
Yeah, don't get Tasha's Cauldron of everything yet. It's like
oh,
the,
I've got it. I've got it, but I haven't read it.
so do I. The new subclasses are just like I found out there's a really overpowered paladin subclass if you let it get to level 20, and it's just dangerous.
Yeah. Um, but I've got to say, two of my favorite characters that I've ever played, because I did actually get to play more than Tolidas, more than my Knight of Slamiad, but two of my favorite characters I've ever played have been during these more recent times. Arathiel, Willowheart, the paladin that I played during one of our lockdown campaigns.
Yeah, so
Um,
yeah, we did like a one of the campaigns we did. I basically came with this campaign on the spot. Really nice, drawn out campaign, and one that I know we can do several one shots with. It
yeah,
was a
yeah,
high level, purposely high level campaign, and you did play such a wonderfully light-hearted yet vicious character.
yeah.
When
DPS
Arathiel,
paladin.
yeah, when Arathiel got into it and started just dealing damage, that was it. There was no end. And that
No,
and
good.
that freaking oh yeah, natural crit. Well, I'm gonna add a smite on top of that as well, just for good measure. And I was like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
the broken
But that
system.
combination of combination of elf and Oath of the Ancients paladin to me is just absolutely perfect. I always see elves as woodland beings, as being very in touch with nature and all the rest of it, and for the Oath of the Ancients to be not only about trying to encourage other people to be better versions of themselves, but also about being protecting life in general and particularly nature. That's a perfect combination to me. Absolutely love it. I mean, I kind of prefer not to play elves normally because they're such a goddamn trope. And you're gonna end up at being freaking Legolas at some point with your character creation if you're not careful.
So,
Um,
that's the exact
but
same reason why I don't. There are not a lot of humans in my Elridge campaign, because my idea is it's a
yeah,
fantasy game, and I don't mind people playing humans, so I still got them in. But my idea was, well, there's so few in this world, and I mean, I talked about this before. It's like they used to be slaves in the world. They were considered like
yeah,
manual slaves because they could literally do anything. They were the very bog standard. You go do this, okay. kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just don't like the idea that so many fantasy tropes go like, oh yeah, there are thousands and hundreds of human settlements, and it's like, it's fantasy. Come on, give me more races.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm glad I got like
But-
Volvo's Guide to Everything and or monsters and
Yeah.
things like that. It's like, oh yeah, here's a bunch of other playable races. Perfect.
Which is very cool, yeah. I think though he is my favourite character I've ever played, hands down. Spring, absolutely. And I created him as a Tabaxi because I had Nitus Rohan lying around the place. I was like, I can use that. Kind of. It was kind of half Nitus was there first and half Spring came along, and it was a little bit. I can't quite figure out at which point I decided to use Nitus's art for Spring, or when I decided to be a Tabaxi, or what.
It just happened.
It just happened. And the idea of a Tabaxi swashbuckler, whether that's actually out on the sea sailing or just, as in Spring's case when he started off back in his history as a highwayman,
Yeah.
that dashing, charismatic,
Robin Hood Men in
roguish
Tights.
individual. Yeah, exactly. And for the mechanically for the swashbuckler, it works really well as well if you don't mind running a bit of a high risk strategy. Because you've got your Tabaxi mobility,
Yep.
which basically doubles your movement for free, and you've got the swashbuckler's ability to do sneak attack, providing no one else is within 5 feet. So, and also you get a massively high initiative.
Oh yeah.
So if you can get yourself that cracked up initiative, get out there, first action, Tabaxi dash right up against the bad guy, sneak attack on the first round without any worries whatsoever. You don't need to be hidden, you don't need to be surprising them, you don't need anything else. You just need to be out there on point. But as rogue, you're a little bit squishy. So it's always a little bit high risk, and the number of times that Spring has proved his squishiness is quite a few.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few times I've worried where I'm going to kill Spring this
Yeah.
session.
Yeah.
Shit.
It's
I
come
can't kill
close.
him.
It's
He's
come
literally
real
like
close.
one of the main people holding this team together now.
If Spring dies, Spring dies. That's it. That's how the game works. Hopefully they'll be able to bring him back. Hopefully they'll be able to bring him back somehow.
I was
Because
going to
we've
say,
brought
because
other
you have
party
a
members back.
druid cleric in the party.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not sure
Yeah.
if he has resurrection spells yet or not.
No, but there could be other ways of doing it. But
I mean, I had the
you know-
exact same kind of thing. So when we did that mini campaign with Tilly, that's why I kind of came up with Whiskers, who is my Tabaxi
right.
wizard. Because I just wanted a stealthy wizard that can sneak into a room, into a corner, and the next thing you know, there's a fireball gone off, and no one knows where or how it got there. And that was my specification, and
cool.
I wanted him to be like kind of not evil, but with a sense of, well, I don't really want to pay for this, so I'm not going to. Kind of thing.
I call that ultra pragmatism.
That's what Whiskers was like,
Ultra-pragmatism.
very much about himself, like most of the time. Like his story there, like Spink's character was this half elf rogue that he was playing, and we were just I remember we called ourselves the Sticky Bandits just because it was going to be a good, perfect callback to the trope for we just come in, we steal things, and you never see us again.
Yeah, that was good. They were good. They were a good couple of characters. Yeah.
So let's flip it. What is your least favorite or most hated, however you want to put it, class and race? You can even go into like subclasses as well. Something that does emphasize because it doesn't put off like an entire class. Because I don't have a hated class, but there are subclasses I think that just are not worth getting into because there's just no point.
All right. Yeah, similar to you, I don't have any hated races or classes. I think they're all brilliant ways of personifying yourself in another world, depending on who you are and what you want to be. But I think that the endless trope of, I think it most closely would identify as a dwarven fighter champion subclass. Just the dwarf that fights. It fights really well. La 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 la. Probably just drinks ale all the fucking time as well. And let me guess, you've got pluts in your beard, have you? Well, la-di-da. Plate mail? Okay. Axe? Yeah. Shield? Yeah.
So
Spin. Done.
The funny side of that is, so Tilly's character, he's in our little side quest thing. He's replaying his Heimdall guys, and his Heimdall is half fighter, half barbarian, and he didn't get picked that barbarian up at the
Heimdall's
beginning of when I first started this campaign. He was a dwarven fighter champion with an axe and a
Heimdall's
giant hammer.
yeah, Heimdall's redeeming feature against that trope, though, is that one, he's got a barbarian added on,
Yeah.
and two, his massive social awkwardness,
It's brilliant.
which the trope doesn't have. The trope doesn't have that. The trope doesn't give a fuck. It just goes in, drinks everything dry, grabs someone, and goes, "You and me tonight, we're done." Whereas, Heimdall, no. This is huge social awkwardness. Just
Brilliant.
It brings that character into a completely different place. Someone else might make that character do macrame or something as a pastime, but Tilly just gave him massive social awkwardness. And
I don't even think that social awkwardness was planned. I think that was just an accident that ended up happening as well.
Yeah.
So I think very early on in the campaign, so this is like before we started doing putting on YouTube, it was like you just see it like Heimdall, he'd awkwardly go up to girls. So there was that social awkward there, and he didn't know how to do it. And when Ant was still in the game, he was obviously playing Blackheart, and he's like talking to these dwarves, like, "Ladies, have you heard of Heimdall Ironshield?" And in this world, if a dwarf has a last name, he's someone of nobility or purpose, or he needs to be known. So Heimdall Ironshield, and it's obviously Ironshield's like one of the three dwarven royal families. So there's like all over him, and that's when his social. I think that's when purposely the social awkward side of "I'm Heimdall Ironshield" came out, which is just like that needs to go on a T-shirt. That just needs to go on a T-shirt.
It does. It really does. Yeah, because I think he just started using that introduction with his full name as a way of. It was basically swinging his dick around the place, really, in some ways. But bless him, he didn't really know what to do once he'd swung his dick. It was brilliant. Love him.
It's brilliant.
Absolutely love him.
You have to love like characters like that. It's like, okay, here's this, and it's like, okay, what do you want me to do now?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought this was going to do something else. Like, no. Put it away. Put it away. Okay, put it away. Right. So get to that time now. So I get the lovely questionnaire I have. So I created these basically inspired from inside the actor studio, James Lipton's. The little questionnaire he gives like to actors and everything. This is basically the same kind of thing, but it's all based on geeky, sci-fi, fantasy things, and it's all just like these are like general kind of questions, more or less. But it's like a really good feel of like understanding geeks and things like that. So, little time to think about it. Kind of either first answer or whatever you kind of come out with. So question one is: if you could be any other race than a human, what would you be?
Does it have to be a D&D race?
No, it could be any race from any form. It could be a sci-fi race. You can go Klingon or fucking whatever.
I'm going to stay true to my roots then. I'm either going to say a tabaxi or an anthropomorphic wolf person.
So some like
toe beans, man. You'd have toe beans. I mean, what else do you need? Toe beans and ears. Exactly. Yeah.
What superpower would you most like?
I'm going to go with Wolverine's regenerative ability.
So like extra strength healing factor kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love that as well. That would just be awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
because,
oh no, I killed myself. No, I didn't.
And also, it's more the effect of his on his lifespan that gets me.
Yeah.
How much stuff he can see and do, and just being able to expand that because, not as young as I used to be.
If you could be a spellcaster or be able to like use magic, what kind would you like to be? So I could be like witch, warlock, sorcerer, wizard, druid, shaman, whatever. Like there's so many different kinds you can be. What would you like personally try and like magic wise learn and be?
Right. I've got two options here. Druid, when you mentioned it, went yes, because nature and animals and shapeshifting and druids are just amazing. But the first thing that came to my mind was D&D's second edition had a handbook come out as an expansion called the Psionicist's Handbook, which is all mental powers and mind powers. And I was just like, yeah, Silent Assist. Definitely Silent
Psionic
Assist.
powers, yeah. That
Yeah.
that would be absolutely awesome. Read minds, move things in your minds, kind of shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that.
Pyrokinesis.
Oh yes. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. This next one's a really really simple one. Jedi or Sith?
Grey Jedi.
Thank you. Someone. It's not. I don't know whether it's canon anymore, but that's the line I
Yeah.
would follow as well. I'd be a gray Jedi
Yeah.
all the way. Screw your
Yep.
screw your peace, screw your power. It's all about the Force.
Yeah. It's all about the force and balance.
Yes, that's exactly the same line I would be traveling down, and just so I can have gray robes and be like, yeah, I'm gonna kill everybody here. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because that's what they would do. It was like Jedi's and Sith were fighting. The Grey Jedi would just walk in and kill everybody and walk out.
Yeah. Y'all are shitheads. You dan.
Yep. Um, which superhero would you like to be the sidekick of?
Deadpool's already taken in these answers, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Spink said Deadpool last week.
Does it have to be a superhero in terms of,
No, it could be
DC Comics?
super villain as well, or I mean, it could be like any form of like superhero. I mean, you can go like from the boys as well if you wanted to, just to go like that dark, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be Homelander's sidekick and just. Yeah,
Oh no, because the air.
yeah, no.
um, oh, that's actually really tricky. Hellblazer,
Help!
John
Oh wow,
Constantine.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
that would actually
definitely.
be
Yeah.
fucking awesome.
I mean, you'd be in a fucking loony bin within 6 months, but
Oh god.
what a 6 months! What a 6 months, man!
I'm sorry, he's like one of my favorite parts about DC is John Constantine and just
Yep,
his no regards. I'm just gonna come here, kick ass, and hope you
yep.
all. I hope you all survive. But if you don't,
If you don't,
well, I'm sorry. That actually kind of
yep.
leads into the next one: Marvel or DC.
I'm going to go Grey Jedi again, effectively, because I've always been I've cherry picked from Marvel, DC, Dark
Yeah,
Horse, just whatever I actually like. I don't hold any loyalty to any particular publishing house.
that was one way to go.
Yeah.
If you had access to a time travel machine, what year would you visit first? Or what part of time or history would you go and visit?
Um, I probably, after looking it up in a book and figuring out when it actually is, want to go and visit the period of the high seas.
Ooh.
So when the swashbucklers were actually around and pirates and all the rest of that was going on in the
So
Caribbean.
you could go like the golden age of piracy, which is 1700. So that was between
18. Yeah.
1680 and 1715, or somewhere around
Yeah.
that area.
I mean,
I'm a
it
pirate lore nuthead, so I know all
cool.
this off by
It'd
heart.
be yeah, it'd be stinky, it'd be uncomfortable, it'd be horrendous, but it could also be pretty cool.
Golden days of
I think
Nassau and the Pirate Republic, yeah.
yeah. And other than that, I'd maybe bounce back a couple of times in my life and maybe just poke myself in the shoulder and say, "It's gonna be all right. You're gonna get through this as well. You're gonna be okay."
All right, then. So if you were like living in a fantasy or medieval kind of world, what profession would you want to take up? Like blacksmith, stable master. Yeah,
You've said it already. Blacksmith.
yeah.
In the fiction that had, well, was at one point writing, but I really need to pick up again if I want to finish it, about those characters I made. Kai is a blacksmith as well as a bounty hunter. I'm fascinated by blacksmithing. I'm fascinated by armor craft. I spent a weekend a few years back making my own longbow. Um, and just all of those crafts and the whole thought process that went behind them to get the science and the chemistry for actually getting proper metal annealing and alloying and tempering and the trial and error and the massive brains that those people must have
Oh
had and
yeah.
those ways to actually be able to come up with that in the first place without knowing about the underlying crystalline structure of carbon in steel.
Brilliant, yeah.
Fascinating profession.
So this next one's a very similar question. This time, space or starship, however you want to call it. What would your job title be on space or starship?
There is, unfortunately, I can't think of a job title that involves being a lazy git. Um, Probably gonna say some sort of quartermaster. Um, yeah, quartermaster, because I sadly enough in life I run around with lists of stuff in my head all the time anyway.
Yeah,
Um, and trying to provision and look after people and make certain we got the stuff, and also knowing what we've got on board in case there's some sort of problem that tech or equipment that might be in the back could help with. That sounds pretty fun. And other than that, skim off the top a little bit.
brilliant. So last one. I think this one. I think this is the one that's going to like speak most to like a lot of people. So one day you wake up in a different world or universe. Which one would you like to be waking up into?
Ooh, that's really hard to cut it down to one.
Yeah,
Um,
this is why I said this is like
Firefly
one
is up
that's.
there.
Yeah, oh god, yeah.
Yeah,
Fucking Firefly.
Firefly's right up there. Yeah, the world of Usagi Yojimbo is right up there. Um, oh God, I think either of those two, I'd be pretty happy in either of those two. Um, I've got one of those weird feelings where you're like, yeah, those are both cool answers, but I think there's something else that you want to say, and my brain's just going, yeah, maybe, but I don't know what it is.
Always
Yeah,
typical.
yeah. You know the real true answer is just hiding behind something and not coming out. Um, but I don't know
I'm
what
gonna
it
get a
is.
message off you like middle of the night. This is what I want to say.
You're gonna get a message on Facebook. It was this. And if I do message you on Facebook about it, we can put like a card at the end of this, just going, Neil actually wants to be in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because this isn't going up to Wednesday. So if you think of it before, well, I'm going to be editing on Tuesday. If you think of it before then, I could slip it in like this is what his actual answer was.
yeah, yeah. So we'll leave it like that. That's the joy of a 44-year-old brain. Sometimes it just sits there going, "No, I'm not going to tell you. Don't want to."
H, don't do it. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, Neil, thank you for joining me today on this. I still don't know what I'm doing podcast of a thing. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll get there one day. But thank you for joining me. Thank you
Sure.
everyone for watching this and finding out a little
Thank
bit
you.
more about our magnificent guy who plays Spring Winds. I can't remember his full on fucking name.
Notice spring winds that bring the warm rains of change of Rohan.
There
You go.
it's a lot
And
like
things-
Percival Rolo from fucking Critical Role.
Yeah! And things with down the tavern. Mine's a pint of ale, mate. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yep, no worries, man. All right, I'll catch you next time, and we'll see you all fucking later.